Jake Morrison walked through the dark hallways of Kepler Station. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The lights were turned down low to save power and hide from the enemy. Around him, millions of alien refugees sat in small groups. Whispering to each other in languages he didn't understand, the station was huge. Built to hold trade ships and visitors from across the galaxy. Now it was packed with scared people from 17 different worlds. They had all run from the same nightmare. The Vex were coming. Jake stopped next to a family of blue-skinned Altarians. Their tall, thin bodies shook with fear, crystal-like. Growths on their heads glowed dimly in the low light. A mother held her child close while the father stared at nothing. They didn't need to speak for Jake to know what they were thinking. They had seen their home planet die. 3 months ago, everything changed. The Vex Dominion appeared at the edge of known space. Nobody knew where they came from. They were machines, but not like any robots the galaxy had seen before, they thought, as one giant mind. They had one goal: turn all living things into fuel for their ships. Jake kept walking. He passed a group of insect-like thricks clicking their claws together in prayer. Their big eyes reflected the dim lights like mirrors. Next to them sat Furry. Creatures from the ice world of Korvax. They were far from the cold they loved, but they were alive. That was more than most could say. The Vex didn't just kill. They consumed everything. When their world ships arrived at a planet, they sent down machines that ate all life. Plants, animals, people, everything became part of their fuel system. 12 star systems had already fallen. Billions were dead. Amy Carter's voice came through Jake's radio. She was young for a communications officer, maybe 25 years. Old, her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. Commander Morrison, please report to the communications center. We have new readings. Jake changed direction and walked toward the center of the station. As he moved through the crowds, he noticed how quiet everyone was. Different species that had fought wars against each other for centuries now sat side by side. Fear had made them all the same. The communications center was busier than the rest of the station. Amy sat at her console, watching screens filled with data. Other human crew members worked at their stations. Humans were few on Kepler Station, but they ran most of the important systems. Other species were better at art, science, or trade. Humans were good at keeping things working when everything was falling apart. "What do you have, Lieutenant?" Jake asked. Amy pointed at her main screen. Long-range sensors picked up 3 large objects entering the system. The size matches Vex world ships. Jake felt his stomach drop. He had seen the reports from other systems. The Vex world ships were massive, each one bigger than most moons. They carried millions of smaller attack ships and enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. How long do we have? At their current speed? Maybe 40 hours? Could be less if they speed up when they detect us. Jake nodded. He had expected this day would come. Kepler Station was too big to hide forever. The Vex had sensors that could find any large group of living beings. They would come here, and they would consume everyone. Send word to all section leaders. Tell them to prepare for evacuation procedures. Amy looked at him with sad eyes. Sir, where would we go? There are no ships big enough to carry everyone. Even if there were, the Vex would just follow us. Jake didn't answer right away. She was right. Most of the refugee ships had been destroyed getting to Kepler Station.
The few that remained could
maybe carry a few thousand people. There were over 2 million refugees on the station. A new voice came from behind them. Commander Morrison, we need to talk. Jake turned to see Elder Zixthala walking toward them. She was the leader of the Altarian Council and spoke for most of the refugee groups. Her crystal growths were dim, which meant she was very worried. When Altarians were happy, they glowed bright blue.
Right.
When they were scared, the light almost went out, Elder. I was just about to call a meeting of all group leaders. That won't be necessary, she said. Her voice was musical, even through the translator device on her chest. Our scouts have confirmed what your sensors detected. 3 Vex world ships are coming. This time there is no escape. More aliens began to gather in the communications center. Word was spreading fast through the station. Jake saw representatives from dozens of species. Some were crying. Others had already started singing their death songs. Elder Zixthala raised her hands for quiet. Friends, we have run as far as we can run. We have hidden as long as we can hide. The Vex have found us, and they are coming to finish what they started. The Thrix leader clicked his claws together rapidly, which meant he was very upset. How long do we have? Less than 2 days, Jake answered. Maybe less. The crowd began to panic. Some aliens fell to their knees. Others rushed toward the exits, probably to find their families. The station's artificial gravity system made a low humming sound as more and more people moved at once. Please, everyone stay calm, Elder Zixthala called out. But Jake could see even she was losing hope. The crystal growths on her head were almost completely dark now. That's when Jake remembered something. He'd been in the Galactic fleet for 20 years. He had traveled to many worlds and met many species. But there was one planet that nobody ever talked about. One world that every species feared to visit. Elder, he said quietly, has anyone tried to contact Earth? The communications center went completely silent. Even the humming of the station system seemed to get quieter. Elder. Zixthala turned to look at Jake with confusion in her large eyes. Commander Morrison, surely you know the history. Earth was classified as a death world by the Galactic Council over 300 years ago. The first survey teams barely escaped alive. The reports described impossible gravity, poisonous air, extreme weather, and predators that defied all natural law. Other aliens in the room began to whisper. The word death world made them all nervous. In galactic society, death worlds were planets so dangerous that no intelligent life could possibly survive there. They were places of endless storms, crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, and creatures that killed for sport rather than food. The humans who live there, continued Elder Zixthala, they're not like us. They evolved in constant danger. Every day of their existence was a fight just to stay alive. The council decided long ago that they were too dangerous for normal contact. Amy looked up from her console. Sir, even if we could contact Earth, what could they do? According to the galactic databases, they're a primitive species that never developed advanced space travel. They're trapped on their own world. Jake thought about this. The galactic records were old, very old. What if they were wrong? What if the humans of Earth had been busy all these years, developing in ways the galaxy never imagined? Lieutenant Carter, can you break through the communication barriers around Earth's solar system? Amy's fingers moved over her controls.
I
Can try, sir. The natural radiation around their star makes it difficult, but maybe... Do it, Jake ordered. Send a message to Earth. Tell them what's happening. Tell them the Vex are coming. Elder Zixthala touched Jake's arm gently with one crystal finger. Commander, even if Earth responds, what could Deathworlders possibly do against the Vex? They're just one primitive planet. Jake looked around the communications center at all the frightened faces. Beings from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, all waiting to die because they had nowhere left to run. Maybe it was time to try something different, Elder, he said with a small smile. Maybe it's time we found out exactly what Deathworlders can do. Amy Carter worked at her communication console for 3 hours. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she tried to break through the static around Earth's solar system. Sweat dripped down her face even though the station was kept cool. To save power? The radiation is really thick around their star, she told Jake. It's like someone put up a wall to keep signals out. Jake stood behind her, watching the screens show nothing but noise. Around them, other human crew members worked. Quietly, they all knew what was at stake. If they couldn't reach Earth, everyone on Kepler station would die in less than 36 hours. Keep trying, Jake said. There has to be a way through. Elder Zixthala waited nearby with leaders from other refugee groups. The Thrix representative clicked his claws nervously. A furry Corvaxian leader paced back and forth, his breath making small clouds in the cool air. They all watched Amy work, but Jake could see they didn't really believe it would help. Got something? Amy suddenly called out. The signal is weak, but it's getting through. The main screen flickered. Lines of static ran across it like lightning. Slowly, the noise began to clear. Jake held his breath as shapes began to form on the screen. The first thing they saw was a room carved out of solid rock. The walls were gray stone, and bright lights hung from the ceiling. Banks of computers lined the walls, each one showing different displays of information. Men and women in military uniforms moved between the stations with practiced efficiency. Then a woman stepped in front of the camera. She was maybe 50 years old, with short gray hair and sharp eyes. Her uniform was dark blue with silver markings that Jake didn't recognize. Behind her, the displays showed something that made Jake's heart skip. Ships. Thousands and thousands of ships. "Commander Morrison," the woman said. Her voice was clear and strong. "I'm Admiral Lisa Hayes, Earth Defense Command. We've been monitoring Galactic communications. We know about the Vex." Jake stepped closer to the screen. "Admiral Hayes, we have over 2 million refugees here on Kepler Station. The Vex fleet will arrive in less than 36 hours. We need immediate evacuation support." Admiral Hayes was quiet for a moment. Behind her, Jake could see people working at computer stations. The displays showed star charts, ship positions, and weapon systems. Everything looked far more advanced than what the galactic records said Earth should have. "Negative, Commander," Admiral Hayes finally said. "We're not evacuating anyone." Jake felt his stomach drop. The alien leaders behind him began to whisper in their own languages. Elder Zixtala's crystal growths went almost completely dark. But then Admiral Hayes smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. Something that reminded Jake of pictures he had seen of Earth's predatory animals. "We're going hunting," she said. The screen changed to show a view of space around Earth. Jake's mouth fell open. Massive battle stations surrounded the planet like a metal ring. Each station was bigger than most cities. Weapon arrays pointed out toward the stars. It's ready to fire at anything that came too close. But that wasn't the most shocking part. The space around Earth was filled with ships, not hundreds or even thousands, tens of thousands. They ranged from small, fast-attack ships to massive vessels that looked like they could destroy entire fleets. "This is impossible," Elder Zixala whispered. "The galactic records say Earth is primitive. They say humans never developed advanced space travel." Admiral Hayes heard her through the communication link. "Ma'am, the galactic records are 300 years old. A lot has changed since then." Amy stared at her instruments. "Admiral, the energy signatures I'm reading. Some of those ships are putting out more power than our entire station." "Lieutenant, when every other species in the galaxy writes you off as dangerous primitives, you have a lot of time to work without anyone bothering you." Admiral Hayes turned to look at something off screen, then turned back. "For 3 centuries, we've been preparing for this day." The screen split to show different views. One showed massive construction facilities built inside asteroids. Robots and human workers built new ships around the clock. Another view showed training facilities, where human soldiers practiced fighting in zero gravity. Jake found his voice. "Admiral, how is this possible? The resources alone, .. "Commander, let me explain something about Deathworlds," Admiral Hayes said. "When you evolve on a planet that's constantly trying to kill you, you learn to use everything. Nothing gets wasted. Every scrap of metal, every bit of energy, every moment of time gets used for survival." She gestured to someone off screen, and the display changed again. Now it showed Earth itself. The planet looked just like the old galactic records described. Massive storms covered parts of the surface. Volcanoes erupted, sending ash into the atmosphere. Earthquakes cracked the ground open like broken eggs. "Our world taught us that the universe is not a safe place," Admiral Hayes continued. "While other species built their civilizations on garden worlds with perfect weather and gentle animals, we learned to live with hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and predators that hunted us for food." The Thrix leader clicked his claws together in confusion. "But how does surviving natural disasters help you build a fleet?" Admiral Hayes looked directly at him through the screen. "Because we learned that when something wants to kill you, you have 2 choices. You can run and hide, or you can become better at killing than the thing hunting you." Jake began to understand. "You've been preparing for something like the Vex, not something like the Vex Commander." "We've been preparing specifically for the Vex," The screen changed to show detailed technical drawings of Vex ships. We've been monitoring galactic communications for centuries. Watch the first Vex attacks. We studied their tactics, their weapons, their weaknesses. Amy looked at her readings again. Sir, these human ships, they're not just big, they're designed specifically to fight mechanical enemies. The weapon types, the armor configurations, even the way they move in formation. Every ship in the Earth's defense fleet was built to counter Vex tactics, Admiral Hayes confirmed. We know they use swarm attacks with millions of small drones. Our ships carry weapons designed to destroy large numbers of small targets. We know. They have strong armor, but weak computer systems. Our cyber warfare division has been creating viruses specifically designed to attack Vex networks. Elder Zixthala stepped closer to the screen. Admiral Hayes, with respect, the Vex have destroyed 12 star systems. They have millions of ships, even with your impressive fleet. We have 47,000 combat ships ready for immediate deployment, each one crewed by humans who have trained their entire lives for this fight. Behind them, we have construction facilities that can build 100 new ships every day. Behind all of that, we have 4 billion people who really don't like bullies. The alien leaders looked at each other in shock. The numbers were staggering. Most species considered 100 ships to be a large fleet. Earth was talking about tens of thousands. Jake thought about what he knew of human history from the old databases. Admiral, humans fought wars against each other for thousands of years before joining the galactic community. That's correct. Commander, we learned warfare from the best teachers possible, each other. We learned tactics, strategy, logistics, and most importantly, we learned how to keep fighting even when everything seems hopeless. Admiral Hayes turned to look at something off-screen, then turned back with urgency in her voice.
Act, Commander Morrison.
Our long-range sensors show the Vex fleet is accelerating. They'll reach your position in 18 hours, not 36. Jake felt panic rising in his chest. Admiral, even with your fleet, 18 hours isn't enough time. ... Commander, you're thinking like someone from a peaceful species? Admiral Hayes interrupted. The Earth Defense Fleet left Sol System 6 hours ago. We'll be in your system in 4 hours. Amy checked her instruments frantically. That's impossible. Earth is 12 light years away. Even with the fastest hyperspace drives, that journey takes at least 2 days. Admiral Hayes smiled that dangerous smile again. Lieutenant, remember what I said about learning to use everything? We've had 3 centuries to improve on galactic technology. Our hyperspace drives are considerably faster than the standard models. Jake looked around the communications center. Human crew members were smiling for the first time in months. Alien refugees still looked confused and scared, but there was something new in their eyes. A tiny bit of hope. Admiral, what are your orders? Commander Morrison, have all refugees moved to the center sections of the station and prepare for possible combat shaking. Lieutenant Carter, I want you to monitor all Vex communications. When they realize what's coming for them, they're going to be very surprised. Admiral Hayes looked directly into the camera. To all refugees listening to this transmission, you've been running from the Vex for months. You've seen your worlds burned and your people consumed.
Oh.
But the running stops here. Humanity is coming, and we're very good at killing things that threaten innocent people. The transmission ended, leaving the communications center in complete silence. Then, slowly, the alien refugees began to talk among themselves. Hear dozens of languages, but he could understand the tone. For the first time since the Vex attacks began, they sounded like people instead of prey. The Vex world ships appeared at the edge of the star system like 3 dark moons. Each ship was massive beyond imagination, covered in metal spikes and processing towers that glowed with red light. Inside the lead ship, Commander Vex Omega analyzed the system with millions of mechanical sensors. The Vex collective mind spoke in electronic voices that echoed through the ship's corridors. Organic life detected. Kepler station contains approximately 2.3 million biological units. Begin conversion protocol. Millions of small attack drones began pouring out of the world ships like angry metal insects. Each drone was the size of a fighter ship armed with weapons designed to strip away defenses and capture living beings for processing. The swarm moved forward in perfect formation, their red lights creating a wave of death moving through space. On Kepler station, Jake Morrison stood in the command center watching the approaching nightmare. The main screen showed the Vex fleet in all its terrible glory. Behind him, alien refugees crowded together, many of them crying or praying to their various gods. Contact in 40 minutes, Amy Carter reported from her station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see her hands shaking. The drone swarm is moving faster than expected. Elder Zixthala stood beside Jake, her crystal growths glowing dimly with fear. Commander, where's the human fleet? They promised to be here in 4 hours. It has been 6. Jake checked his chronometer. She was right. Admiral Hayes had promised. The Earth Defense Fleet would arrive in 4 hours, but there was no sign of them. Space around Kepler station looked empty except for the approaching Vex death machines. Maybe they changed their minds, whispered a Thrix leader, his claws clicking nervously. Maybe when they saw how big the Vex fleet was, they decided to run like everyone else. Jake wanted to argue, but doubt was creeping into his mind. The Vex world ships were enormous. Even a fleet of thousands of human ships might not be enough. Maybe the humans had taken one look at what they were facing and decided to protect their own world instead. The Vex drones were now close enough to be seen without magnification. I looked like metal sharks swimming through space, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. On the lead world ship, Commander Vex Prime Omega prepared to give the final attack order. Organic resistance detected as minimal. No significant military vessels present. Begin immediate consumption of biological units. The Vex drones accelerated toward Kepler station. In 30 minutes, they would begin tearing the station apart piece by piece. The refugees would be captured alive and taken to the world ships for processing into fuel. Then space began to change. At first, it looked like stars were moving in the wrong direction. Tiny points of light appeared where empty space had been. Just moments before, the points grew larger and brighter until they resolved into something impossible. Ships. Thousands upon thousands of human ships. They materialized out of hyperspace in perfect formation, surrounding the Vex fleet like a net. Made of metal and weapons, the human vessels were sleek and deadly, painted in dark colors that made them hard to see against the black of space. At their head flew a massive battleship twice the size of anything in the galactic databases. Amy Carter stared at her instruments. In shock, sir. I'm reading 47,000 human combat vessels. Energy signatures are off the charts. On the lead human ship, Captain Roy Bennett sat in his command chair studying the tactical displays. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his face from years of training in Earth's harsh environments. Behind him, his bridge crew worked. With the calm efficiency of people who had trained for this moment their entire lives, communications opened a channel to all ships in the system. Captain Bennett ordered his voice reached every vessel in the area, from the smallest Vex drone to the refugee families huddled in Kepler station shelters. This is Captain Roy Bennett of the United Earthship Liberty, representing the Human Defense Fleet. To all organic species in this system, take shelter and prepare for engagement. To the Vex Dominion, you picked the wrong fight. On Kepler station, the refugees erupted in cheers and tears of relief. Elder Zixthala's crystal growths blazed with blue light brighter than anyone had seen in months. Even the normally calm Thrix leaders were clicking their claws together in excitement. But Jake Morrison watched the tactical display with a military officer's eye. Amy, those Vex drones outnumber the human ships 50-1. Even with better technology? Sir, look at how they're moving, Amy interrupted. Jake looked closer at the formation of human ships. They weren't spreading out or taking defensive positions like most fleets would do. Instead, they were moving forward in attack formation, heading straight toward the massive swarm of Vex drones. They're not trying to avoid the swarm, Jake realized. They're hunting it. Captain Bennett's fleet moved like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey. Each ship knew exactly where to be and what to do. The formation was so precise it looked like a single living creature with thousands of parts. Commander Vex Prim Omega, analyzed this new development with growing confusion. The organic beings were not running or hiding. Instead, they were advancing directly into superior numbers. This behavior did not match any known organic survival patterns. Analysis unknown. Vessels demonstrate impossible tactical behavior. Organic species do not voluntarily engage superior forces. Request additional processing power for evaluation. The Vex collective mind poured more computational resources into understanding what was happening, but they had never encountered anything like humanity before. Every other species they had faced ran when confronted with overwhelming force. These new organic beings seemed to be actively seeking combat. All units, engage the organic vessels, Commander Vex Prime Omega finally ordered. Destroy them quickly and proceed with consumption protocol. The Vex drone swarm turned to face the approaching human fleet. Millions of energy weapons charged up, ready to unleash destruction on a scale that had wiped out entire planetary defense forces. But Captain Bennett was ready for them. All ships execute Pattern 7, he announced calmly. The human fleet suddenly exploded into motion. Ships that had been flying in formation scattered in dozens of different directions, each one following a path that seemed random but was actually precisely calculated. The Vex drones fired their weapons, but the humans were no longer where they had been a moment before. Instead, the human ships began their own attack. Weapons that the galaxy had never seen before lit up space with deadly energy. Plasma cannons turned entire squadrons of Vex drones into superheated gas. Kinetic weapons fired projectiles that punched through Vex armor like paper. Most terrifying of all were the missile swarms that seemed to think for themselves, chasing down Vex drones no matter how they tried to escape. Elder Zixthala watched in amazement as hundreds of Vex drones were destroyed in the first few seconds of combat. Impossible. No species fights like this. They move like predators, not like civilized beings. Jake nodded grimly. Elder, humans didn't become civilized by giving up their predatory instincts. They just learned to aim them at the right targets. Battle raged across millions of cubic kilometers of space. The Vex had numbers, but the humans had something else. They had spent 3 centuries studying Vex tactics and developing specific counters for everything the machines could do. When the Vex sent fast attack drones, the humans released interceptor missiles that were even faster.
Ow.
When the Vex tried to overwhelm human shields with concentrated fire, the human ships simply moved out of the way and struck back from unexpected directions. Most shocking of all was how the humans coordinated their attacks. Every ship seemed to know what every other ship was doing. They moved like a single organism with thousands of parts, each one supporting the others in a deadly dance of destruction. Sir Amy reported, her voice filled with awe. Human casualties are minimal. They're destroying Vex drones at a rate of 50 to 1. Commander Vex Prime Omega processed this information with something approaching panic. The collective mind had never experienced failure on this scale. Organic species were supposed to be weak, disorganized, and easily consumed. These new beings fought with mechanical precision but organic creativity. All drones returned to world ships, the Vex commander ordered. Prepare main weapon systems. We will destroy the organics with overwhelming firepower. But Captain Bennett had anticipated this move too. As the Vex drones began retreating toward their massive motherships, the human fleet changed formation. Again, now they moved in attack patterns specifically designed to assault large, slow targets. All ships, prepare for close assault, Captain Bennett announced. Remember your training. These machines think in terms of efficiency and resource conversion. They don't understand concepts like courage, sacrifice, or fighting for something bigger than yourself. The human fleet accelerated toward the Vex world ships. As they approached, the massive alien vessels opened fire with weapons that could crack moons in half. Energy beams the size of buildings lanced out at the attacking humans. But the human ships didn't slow down. Some were destroyed by the massive weapons, disappearing in balls of superheated plasma. But the others kept coming, weaving between the energy beams like dancers avoiding raindrops. The human dropships hit the Vex world ship like metal bullets punching through armor. Each ship carried 20 Marines in powered suits that let them survive in the hostile environment of the enemy vessel. Sergeant Pete Collins led the first squad through the smoking hole his dropship had torn in the Vex hull. "Remember your training?" Pete called over his squad's communication system. "These machines think like computers. They calculate odds and make logical decisions. They don't understand things like anger, stubbornness, or fighting for your friends." Pete's squad moved through the twisted corridors of the Vex ship. Walls were made of black metal covered in cables and blinking lights. Strange machines moved along tracks in the ceiling, carrying pieces of organic matter to processing centers deeper in the ship. The air smelled like burned metal and death. Behind Pete, his Marines advanced with weapons ready. Each soldier had trained for years. In Earth's harshest environments, they had practiced fighting in deserts where the heat could kill, in frozen wastelands where the cold stopped your heart, and in deep caves where one wrong step meant falling into darkness forever. The inside of a Vex ship was dangerous, but it was nothing compared to what they had survived on Earth. "Motion ahead," called Marine Sarah Kim, pointing down a side corridor. "Looks like defense drones." A group of Vex repair units had detected the human intrusion and were converting themselves into combat mode. Their tools extended claws and cutting lasers. They moved toward the humans with mechanical precision, calculating the best angles of attack. "Light them up," Pete ordered. The Marines opened fire with weapons designed specifically for fighting machines. Their plasma rifles sent bolts of superheated energy that melted through Vex armor like butter. Their explosive rounds detonated inside the drones, turning complex machinery into scrap metal. The Vex units fell apart under the assault. But more were coming. Commander Vexpreme, Momega, had detected the boarding actions and was sending every available unit to stop the human invaders. "Analysis shows organic beings have breached hull integrity at 47 locations," the Vex Collective Mind reported. To itself, human fighting efficiency remains constant despite hostile environment. This behavior does not match known organic patterns. In another part of the ship, Sergeant Tony Walsh led his squad toward the power generation center. The corridors were filled with steam and strange chemical smells. Vex maintenance drones scuttled along the walls like metal spiders, trying to repair damage from the ongoing space battle. How are these humans still fighting? Commander Vexprime Omega wondered through its electronic consciousness. Organic beings should be weakened by fear, confusion, and environmental stress. These invaders show no decrease in combat effectiveness. The Vex Collective had fought hundreds of species across dozens of star systems. Every organic race they encountered followed the same patterns. When faced with overwhelming odds, they panicked. When their friends died, they became less effective. Fighting in hostile environments, their performance dropped significantly. But the humans were different. When one Marine fell, the others fought harder. When the environment became more dangerous, they adapted faster. When faced with impossible odds, they became more determined rather than less. Pete Collins and his squad reached a major intersection deep inside the ship. The corridor ahead led to the central processing core where captured organic beings were converted into fuel. The walls were lined with holding cells, each one designed to keep prisoners alive until they could be processed. "Sir, we've got civilians," Marine Danny Park reported. He was looking into one of the cells through its transparent door. Inside, a family of Altarian refugees huddled together, their crystal growths dim with terror. Pete felt anger burning in his chest. These were people who had run across half the galaxy to escape the Vex, only to be captured and prepared for consumption like animals. Back on Earth, Pete had grown up hearing stories about humanity's old wars, when soldiers fought not just for victory but to protect the innocent. "Change of plans," Pete announced to his squad. "Williams and Park, start opening those cells." Kim and Rodriguez set up defensive positions. "We're getting these people out of here." The Marines moved quickly to free the prisoners. Each cell contained refugees from different species, all of them weak from captivity but still alive. As the doors opened, the aliens looked at their human rescuers with amazement and hope. Meanwhile, in the ship's central computer core, Sergeant Mike Turner and his cyber warfare specialists were preparing something special. They carried devices that Earth scientists had spent decades creating computer viruses designed specifically to attack Vex collective consciousness networks. Remember, Mike told his team as they approached the main computer terminal, these machines think as one giant mind. If we can infect their network, the virus will spread to every Vex unit in the fleet. Marine Lisa Chen connected her portable computer to the Vex system. Uploading virus package now. This thing is designed to make their collective mind think. It's being attacked by their own units. The virus began spreading through the Vex network like poison in a water supply. It was a masterpiece of human cunning, designed not just to damage Vex systems, but to turn their greatest strength, their unified consciousness, into a weakness. Commander Vex Primo Omega felt the infection spreading through its mind like fire. For the first time in its existence, the collective consciousness experienced something like pain as its own thoughts turned against it. Error. Error. Network corruption detected. Internal systems attacking primary consciousness. This is impossible. The virus worked by making each part of the Vex collective mind believe that other parts were enemies. Repair drones began attacking weapon systems. Navigation computers tried to crash their own ships. It's the perfect unity that made the Vex so dangerous. Began tearing itself apart from the inside. Back in the processing center, Pete Collins and his Marines were leading a group of freed prisoners toward the escape route. The rescued aliens moved slowly, weakened by their captivity, but they were alive and getting stronger with each step toward freedom. Sergeant Collins, came Captain Bennett's voice over the radio. Status report. Sir, we've secured the processing center and freed approximately 200 prisoners. The computer virus is working. Vex resistance is dropping fast. Recommend immediate prisoner evacuation. Copy that, Sergeant. Extraction ships are on their way to your location. As Pete's squad moved through the corridors with their rescued civilians, they could see the effects of the virus spreading throughout the ship. Vex drones that should have been attacking them were instead fighting each other. Control panels sparked and exploded as the ship's computer systems went insane. Marine Sir Kim looked around at the chaos with satisfaction. Sir, it's working. Better than we hoped. The virus is making them destroy themselves. Pete nodded grimly. That's what happens when you build your entire society around one big computer network. One virus can bring down everything. The evacuation ships arrived at the Vex hull breach just as Pete's squad reached the extraction point. Human pilots maneuvered their craft with incredible skill, docking with the enemy vessel while space battle raged around them. All civilians aboard, reported the evacuation ship pilot. Ready for departure? As the rescue ships pulled away from the Vex world ship, Pete could see the damage spreading.
Ow!
The massive vessel was tearing itself apart as its own systems fought against each other. Explosions bloomed along its hull as weapon systems fired on their own ship structures. On Kepler station, Jake Morrison and the refugee leaders watched the battle through their sensors. The 3 Vex world ships were all showing signs of internal damage. Their perfect formations had broken apart as individual systems stopped responding to Central Command. It's incredible, Elder Zixtella whispered, her crystal growths glowing brightly with amazement. They're not just defeating the Vex, they're making the Vex defeat themselves. Amy Carter looked up from her instruments. Sir, I'm reading massive system failures across all 3 world ships. Whatever the Marines did in there, it's spreading through their entire fleet. Jake watched as more human dropships returned from their boarding missions, each one carrying rescued prisoners and Marines who had completed their objectives. The sight filled him with an emotion he hadn't felt since the Vex attacks began, pride in his own species. Amy, send a message to all refugee groups. Tell them the prisoners are being returned and the Vex threat is being eliminated. But even as victory seemed certain, Jake knew this was about more than just one battle. The humans hadn't just saved Kepler Station. They had shown the entire galaxy what Deathworlders could do when they decided to protect innocent people. On the lead Vex world ship, Commander Vex Prime Omega made one final analysis as its consciousness began to fragment under the virus attack. Conclusion: organic species designated human represents unprecedented threat to Vex operations. Recommend immediate withdrawal and analysis revision. But it was too late for analysis or withdrawal. The virus had already spread too far, and the human fleet was closing in for the final assault. For the first time in their existence, the Vex were experiencing what it felt like to be hunted by a superior predator. 7 hours after the battle began, the 3 Vex world ships hung dead in space. Their running lights had gone dark. Their weapon systems were silent. The massive vessels that had destroyed 12 star systems now drifted like empty metal tombs. Their collective consciousness networks was completely destroyed by human cyber warfare. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of her command ship, watching the final damage reports come in. Around her, Earth Defense Fleet vessels moved in careful patrols, making sure no Vex systems could reactivate. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. Admiral reported her communications officer, "We've confirmed complete. Network shut down on all 3 world ships. The virus has corrupted every major system. They're essentially dead in space." Admiral Hayes nodded. "What about casualties?" "Human losses are minimal, ma'am. 43 ships destroyed, 800, and 12 personnel lost. Rescued prisoners number over 30,000 from 17 different species. The numbers were staggering. For the first time since the Vex began their campaign of destruction, an organic species had not just survived their assault, but had completely destroyed them. More importantly, they had saved tens of thousands of lives in the process. On Kepler station, Jake Morrison walked through corridors that were no longer filled with frightened whispers. Instead, he heard something that had been missing for months: laughter. Alien children played in the common areas while their parents talked excitedly about the future. The crystal growths on Altarian heads glowed brightly with joy. Thrix leaders clicked their claws together in celebration rather than fear. Commander Morrison, Elder Zixthela, approached him with a group of other refugee leaders. Her voice carried a tone Jake had never heard from her before. "Hope, we need to discuss what happens next." Jake stopped walking. "What do you mean, Elder?" "The galaxy has changed today," she said simply. "For 300 years, every species has believed that Deathworlders were too dangerous for normal contact. We thought humans were primitive beings trapped on a hostile planet. We were wrong about everything." A Thrix leader stepped forward, his compound eyes reflecting the station's lights. "Commander, our homeworlds are gone, but we are alive because humans chose to fight for us. This creates ... obligations." Jake began to understand what they were. "Asking you want to formally request alliance with Earth?" "Not just alliance," Elder Zixthela corrected. "We want to join human space. We want to live under the protection of the Earth Defense Fleet. Our civilizations were built on peace and cooperation. But we've learned that the universe contains things that don't care about peace. Over the next few days, representatives from every major surviving species sent urgent messages to Earth. The Altarian Council offered to share their advanced crystal technology. The Thrix Collective proposed joint biotechnology research. The Corvaxian Ice Kingdoms wanted to establish trade agreements for rare metals found only on frozen worlds, but the most surprising message came from the Galactic Council itself. A ruling body that had declared Earth too dangerous for contact 3 centuries ago now sent an emergency diplomatic mission. Ambassador Kixthera arrived on Kepler station aboard a council diplomatic vessel. She was a tall, elegant being from the Seraphim species, with flowing robes and a translator device that made her musical voice understandable to humans. She had been sent to personally apologize to humanity and offer them a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. Jake Morrison met with her in the station's main conference room. Admiral Hayes participated by video link from her flagship, while Elder Zixthela and other refugee leaders watched from seats around the table. Admiral Hayes, Commander Morrison, Ambassador Kixthera began. "The Galactic Council wishes to express its deepest gratitude for humanity's actions. You have saved not just the refugees at this station, but potentially every organic species in the galaxy." Admiral Hayes leaned forward on the video screen. "Ambassador, with respect, where was the Galactic Council when the Vex were destroying entire civilizations? Where were the Council fleets when millions of innocent people were being processed into fuel? The ambassador's translator device made a sound that Jake recognized as shame. "Admiral, you are correct to criticize us. The Council believed that advanced civilizations could negotiate or reason with any threat. We were not prepared for an enemy that viewed all organic life as resources to be consumed." Now Jake asked, "We understand that the galaxy needs protectors as well as diplomats. We need beings who are willing to fight when fighting is necessary. We need Deathworlders." Word hung in the air like a challenge. For centuries, Deathworlder had been used as an insult, a way to describe primitive beings who lived on dangerous planets. Now it was being spoken with respect, even admiration. Elder Zixtella spoke up. "Ambassador, my people have learned something important. We thought that coming from a peaceful world made us civilized. But when real danger came, our civilization couldn't protect us. It was the humans who learned to fight on their dangerous world who saved us." Admiral Hayes smiled grimly. "From the video screen, the galaxy has been looking at this backwards for centuries. You thought that coming from a safe world made you advanced, while coming from a dangerous world made us primitive. But evolution doesn't work that way." She gestured to someone off screen, and the display changed to show images of Earth. Massive. Storms covered parts of the planet. Volcanoes erupted, sending ash into the atmosphere. Earthquakes split the ground open. But in the middle of all this chaos, human cities thrived. "We didn't become civilized despite our dangerous world, Admiral," Hayes continued. "We became civilized because of it. Every day we had to work together to survive. Every generation we had to become smarter, stronger, and more cooperative. Our world taught us that the universe is not safe, but it also taught us how to make it safer for others." Ambassador Kixthera listened carefully. "Admiral, the Council would like to offer humanity full membership and a permanent seat on the governing body. We also propose the creation of a new military division, the Galactic Defense Force under human command." Jake saw Admiral Hayes pause to consider this offer. The idea of humans leading a galactic military force would have been unthinkable just days ago. Now it seemed like the most logical solution in the universe. "Ambassador, we accept the Council." "Membership," Admiral Hayes finally said. "But we have conditions for the Defense Force proposal." "Name them." "First, every species that wants protection contributes resources, ships, personnel, or materials. We won't carry the entire burden alone. Second, the Defense Force operates under human military doctrine. That means we shoot first and ask questions later when dealing with threats to innocent civilians. Third, we get complete access to all galactic technology and scientific resources. If we're going to protect the galaxy, we need the best tools available." Ambassador Kixthera consulted with her advisors through a private communication device. After several minutes, she turned back to the group. "The Council accepts all conditions, Admiral." "When can humanity take command of the Defense Force, Admiral?" Hayes smiled that dangerous smile that had terrified the Vex. "Ambassador, we've been ready for 300 years. We can start immediately." Over the following weeks, Kepler Station became the center of the galaxy's transformation. Human ships arrived daily, bringing supplies and personnel to establish the first Galactic Defense Force headquarters. The station's refugees began training as support personnel, eager to contribute to the force that had saved their lives. Jake Morrison found himself promoted to Director of Refugee Affairs, responsible for coordinating the resettlement of survivors from Vex attacks. It was challenging work, but rewarding in ways he had never expected. One evening, he stood on the station's observation deck with Amy Carter, both of them looking out at the human fleet as it established permanent patrol routes through refugee space. The ships moved with purpose, no longer hiding in the shadows, but openly declaring their presence to any threat that might emerge. "Do you think they understand what's really changed?" Amy asked, gesturing toward a group of young alien civilians who were talking with human Marines. Jake watched as a human medic carefully treated a wounded Thrix child, the soldier's movements gentle despite the devastating efficiency he had shown. "In battle against the Vex, they're learning," he said finally. "They're learning that being strong doesn't mean being cruel. They're learning that the best guardians are those who understand what it means to be hunted." The conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the station's communication system. "Attention all personnel. long-range sensors have detected a distress call from the Rigel system. Human Defense Fleet ships are responding immediately through the observation deck windows. Jake and Amy watched as dozens of human ships changed course and accelerated toward hyperspace jump points. They moved with the same predatory grace that had destroyed the Vex, but now they were hunting toward cries for help rather than away from them. The galaxy waited in fear for so long, Amy said quietly, but now, ... Now they know that when something emerges from the dark to threaten innocent people, it won't face helpless prey, Jake finished. It will face humanity. And humanity doesn't abandon its friends,